Welcome back. One of the JSE's newest players, Copper 360, has been in headlines recently, making moves that could see the miner double its production by next year. And joining me now as we dig deeper into these milestones is the company's CEO, Jan Nelson. Jan, thanks so much for joining us today. Now, as I said, it's been a busy week for Copper 360, announcements on all fronts. Let's start off with the recent discovery at R100m mine. Tell us more about what was found there.
Yes, hi, thank you for having us. The discovery at R100m mine is truly a world-class discovery. Historically, the R100m mine mined at grades of 25% copper, which is unheard of, and we started some surface sampling and identified 17% copper on surface, and then we started with drilling after we did some magnetic drone flights, and we've got intersections of over 4.5% copper over 35 meters, and that is extraordinary, and it's one of only 4 anomalies. So what this tells us is that we truly could have a deposit the size of the copper deposits you see in Chile, and that's a change for us in terms of what we previously thought was in the area.
Now, surely this is a welcome boost to production.
Yes, look, we still need to do more drilling and definition, and then the mining engineers will look at how they will mine it. But it certainly, this will make sure that we will significantly be able to ramp up our copper production in the next 5 years.
Now, the company also managed to raise close to 100 million rand for your expansion plan. Just fill us in on how the funds will be used.
Yes, as we said previously, at our Rietberg mine, when we drilled there, we had such good results that we had to change the mining plan and speed it up, and that required us to raise more money. So the money will be used to accelerate the Rietberg expansion, but also we announced that we had bought the processing plant next door to us from Nama Copper, and some of that cash will also be used for the processing plant and the acquisition costs.
Now let's talk about that that acquisition of Nama Copper. Take us through the benefits of that business when it will be fully added into Copper 360.
Yes, well, we expect the transaction to conclude within the next few weeks, and then we will take ownership of the plant. And mainly we bought the property because they had a processing plant that can do about 20,000 tons of copper production. So in terms of our growth, we are currently building a plant that will come into production in a month's time. And then later this year, we would have built a second plant. Now, this acquisition allows us to immediately have a second plant available, and that doubles our production. But on top of that, we also get huge tailings dumps that have got high-grade copper in them. And the whole area is covered by a mining license where there's further potential for copper. And there's also certain water permits and other licenses that we get with it that's beneficial. So it's just a fantastic acquisition for us.
Now, I just want to talk about operating within the copper market, considering that copper is a critical mineral and we've seen some big players also starting to acquire these copper assets. How's the competition like within the space?
Well, we're operating in the Northern Cape. There's, you know, we're the only copper producer in the area, and we virtually own the entire copper field. So we don't really have any competition in that area.
Yeah.
Although we've got very exciting growth, we're still a very small producer in terms of world terms. And all of our copper can almost be sold in South Africa just to satisfy the South African market. So from a competition point of view, in terms of selling our copper, there certainly isn't a problem. And the demand for copper is extremely high. And as I've said, you know, we're in an area where we don't really have any competition.
Now, you mentioned that you are a small player, and we've been seeing a lot of private and public collaboration, particularly within the mining industries from the bigger players. What's your sentiments around mining in South Africa, especially the regulatory environment as an emerging player in the space?
Yeah, you know, I've heard a lot of complaints about South Africa and the regulatory space, but We certainly haven't had that experience. You know, we followed the regulatory lines. We got our mining license, all the other permits we require, we get within the time frame set out by government. So from the Department of Minerals and Resources, we've just had a fantastic experience, and we've had great support. You know, and then in terms of South Africa, you know, despite all the problems, and you know, we do understand we've got a problem with Eskom, but we still have some of the cheapest electricity in the country. 70% of the time, the electricity is there. And if you want to build a mining project, you know, you need infrastructure and you need good people. And South Africa still is one of the leading mining countries in the world where all of that isn't available. You know, as one of our executives said the other day, if you travel from Cape Town to our operations, which is 6 hours north of Cape Town, all the way to our operations, there's not one pothole in the road. So we're also in a very good area of the country. So from my perspective, I actually think we have a competitive advantage of being in South Africa in terms of the regulatory support, the legal framework, the banking systems, the fund managers, and the people that are available to drive our operations. So I don't subscribe to the normal negativism that you see around bigger companies complaining about South Africa.
So clearly crossing your T's and dotting your I's within South Africa is proving to be a lot more easier. You touched on something that I wanted to get into, issues around load shedding, as well as those logistic issues that we have in South Africa. What is the business doing to mitigate those kind of risks?
Yes, so, you know, we obviously have got diesel generators as backup, but, you know, that is not a very costly method of operating, and it's also not environmentally friendly, but it is what we've put in place immediately. We are going to be building a solar farm in this year, probably in the capacity of 10 to 15 meg. And then we're also starting feasibility studies on wind energy. We're in one of the best areas in the country for wind, and the wind generation is the best at night. So that will augment, you know, solar very well in terms of the cost of batteries. So we've got an integrated program that we'll roll out, and that will supplement, you know, or fill in the gaps when we don't have power from Eskom.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we have to leave it there. We will catch up with you when the company releases its results. Thanks so much for joining us. That was Copper 360 CEO Jan Nelson.